and just say your name, and then one thing that you kind of has stuck with you since yesterday, and then Rio, for you, just you can go last. One thing that you've been thinking about lately, and you're kind of like in your life relating to Dharma or whatever like that. Who wants to start?
I'm John, and I've really thought about what it takes to be a good student and not you illustrate, particularly being open and focused on that.
Jay, who wants to go next?
My name is Jay, and one thing that I was from yesterday, and I had been contemplating for quite a bit of time, is the preciousness of human life. So it's always great to hear that from all the teachers. I've been spending first half of the life with animal instincts. Now the second half of the life I want to spend is what is meant to be. So it's always good to hear that again and again.
My name is Paul, and I was thinking about the relationship I've had with a teacher, and the talk yesterday stimulated that. And I went on the teacher's website and thought about that question. I think that was raised yesterday. I really thought about it more deeply, the question of when do you know it's your stuff versus the teacher's stuff, and when you know what is the right action with regard to that. So that was I thought a lot about that last night, this morning, and also the question about when we're talking about the 8 worldly thoughts, and you summarized yesterday that how to work with that, you know, the idea about you use the word true altruism, that stuck with me as a way of working with freeing yourself from that thinking process.
I'm Heather. So what stuck with me, like, kind of strongly this morning, not necessarily so much in the evening, but was when we were talking about how I said, like, I feel like I get scattered kind of off my practice in everyday life, but then when the big things happen, it focuses me more. And then we brought up, like, the idea that, well, you know, you're not suffering in Calcutta, you're not like at that level living on the street, and I understand that comparison, and I know that I'm not in those places, and I am very fortunate in a lot of ways, but then at the same time there's the idea that, like, suffering is suffering, and what I'm experiencing in my life is bad for me, although, like, I couldn't handle being on the streets there, and I won't experience that in this lifetime, most likely. Maybe on the streets in the United States, who knows, but I'm not going to be in Calcutta homeless, you know? So it's kind of a comparison that bothers me in some way, because it's sort of saying that, like, what I'm feeling or what anyone else is feeling, well, there's always someone worse off, you know? So it's like skipping over that instead of maybe saying, like, my life's been relatively smooth, so any little bumps are huge to me. You know, like, in my mind, it's been relatively smooth. Someone else is like a total disaster, and to someone else it's super easy looking, you know, but that's what stuck with me a lot. And then the idea, like when we were talking about the teacher and whether drinking and, like, sleeping with students and all of this is a bad thing or not. Like, I remember I forgot who said this, the idea that it can lead to having no opinion and like no grounding and no sense of right and wrong, and in a way as well. So I was thinking about that too.
You ready?
Oh, cool. Hi, how are you? Is it your question? Lately, I've been really struggling with the whole getting in my own way and not like there's ways you would like to, and then there's like all that old training that's like, nope, you're like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to do this. So all that old training's been like really feisty lately. So yeah, that's what's going on. Okay.
No, we're not in a circle. I'm part of the circle. You're last. My name's Brandy. I don't even know, I haven't put this together in a cohesive thought. I'm part of a group right now that is having a whole bunch of conflicts, and it's interesting to watch it. It's interesting to watch how any circle that we're in, we all play a role, and it's important for all the roles and the aspects to like be presented. And I think maybe this conflict kind of exploded last night in a whole bunch of emails, which is such an unfortunate place for 17 people to be having a group conflict. We've all been like part of that. It doesn't bode well. So I think what was really striking me about it is just the difference between just this being stuck inside my own perspective and the narrowness of that, and then versus the idea of bodhicitta, what it is to like actually expand beyond that and really have a sense of what it's like to be in other people's shoes. So in this conflict, when everybody's chiming in, all their valid experiences, which are so opposite, but how each person's experience, and this is so mine, my experience always tends to be so swayed towards the work that I've done and the effort that I've put in, and then the effort someone else has not put in, and then so it's like I'm hearing all these sides, and everyone's perspective is kind of, it feels like it's at the moment where everyone's just voicing it, and everyone's perspective feels so like, well, this is my side, and I've done this and this and this, and no one helped me, and and it's just so. I was just thinking about how nice it will be to have bodhicitta and be a Buddha and kind of be outside that very limited box of seeing everything in terms of how it relates to me. Because it's kind of a really, and then I was thinking what a miracle it is that at any time any of us can work together in a group and have things actually work out, considering that probably, I don't know for anyone else, but I know for me when I participate in a group, I'm inside my own little box of like, how does this work for Brandy? And if everyone else is in a similar kind of place, like, it's a miracle that we ever work together cooperatively and get anything done at all. So that's what I'm thinking about this morning.
I'm Lindsay, and I was thinking a lot about renunciation. I think mainly this morning I was talking about it with Ryan, Brother Ryan, and no, Brother Ryan, and it just is so hilarious to me, which is probably not good, and like very poignant when I spend time with my niece who's 2, and she like is all of those things to this, max of a 2-year-old, of where she really thinks that swinging on the swing forever is what's gonna is this happiness, and then as soon as you rip it away, like it's never gonna come back, and she gets really upset, and so it's kind of just been fun to go to class and then hang around a 2-year-old and be like, we really like that. Like, I think if I get the swing and I swing on it, and if I do it forever,
Winston, I was touting his class yesterday and the one here over Thanksgiving, his last class was looking at the the journey to enlightenment, and then juxtaposing that with modern psychological views of adult development. Like, so in a way, like, really enlightenment can be talked about as truly growing up. And so we start as the 2-year-old that has just this awesome view, and I think why you're probably finding it funny is that, like, I'm really still like that. Like, it's kind of humorous.
I'm like that. Maybe
But I'm too
but
embarrassed to, like,
yeah.
just throw a straight up tantrum and kick and scream and kick and scream in front of people when I don't get my way. It's really kind of internally that is what's going on, like.
Or the grasping that, like, she really thinks that if she gets the swing,
it's all good then.
It's so
Yeah.
great. And then that
It's
like
over in like 10 minutes.
no, she'll do it forever. She'll swing on that swing for hours.
Yeah.
You remind me of my daughter. Exactly. She when she was an infant, she learned to be with someone, on to someone all of the time, and she could sleep when she was being held, and that was normal. But later on, of course, when she became older, then the swing substituted for that, and so it's not a matter of, it wasn't a matter for my daughter of conscious preference and a pleasure. It was a matter of, well, I've just been reading about it in Mark Epstein on integration, going to a blissful state of being able to dissociate and be utterly at ease to the point where she could go to sleep. So, that very good book. I recommend it. It was for Mark Epstein, a psychoanalyst and a practicing Buddhist teacher at the same time. On integration is important to all of us, he says.
So, Miss Pamela, we were just doing a check-in, saying our name, and then what about what we talked about yesterday has kind of been sticking with you, come back up for you.
My name is Pamela, and what's been sticking with me is how much I love these classes and how grateful I am for the community that's created here and reminders of what it takes to be a good teacher. And thinking about that and how that impacts my daily life. Though I'm aspiring, perhaps, to one day. Really, it's mostly about me right now. Yet I do recognize that I teach the children that I interact with every day and the others. And so it helps give me a guideline and remind me of the template to aspire to do that well. So that was wonderful to have the freedom of an evening with no encumbrances to just sort of meditate on all of that. It made my practices so much sweeter.
Are there any lingering questions from yesterday? I think I heard kind of a few.
Does an ordinary thought like jealousy fit into this scheme? I try to put jealousy there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would probably fit. Part of, I'm happy when I get praised, and then I'm unhappy when I'm not praised and someone else is praised. I think it could fit in there. Or I'm happy when I'm well known, but I'm not happy when I walk into a room with my friend who I'm kind of like in that mode with. I feel like we're at the same level. So and then they're suddenly honored and acknowledged, like, wow, you're so amazing at that, and then I'm the invisible one. So I think it could. Jealousy, it plays in as one of the main 5 mental afflictions that we always have. So when we said we turn renunciation on these 8 worldly thoughts, it's not, we got lots of lists to put forth. Jealousy is a key in when we talk about the 5 main mental afflictions. And I haven't seen it come up yet in the classes, but if it doesn't, it's very much there. But for me, having worked a lot with jealousy, I think it could easily play into both of those things. Or I'm jealous when, instead of, like when someone else gets the, what did I decide I wanted? What are those electric cars? That Tesla. When somebody else that I'm not really a car person, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, a Tesla. So I think the unhappy when I don't get it can, all four of them can be, and being unhappy. So I like it when I feel good, and I'm really into yoga, and I like it when I can do all the yoga poses, but maybe I'm unhappy and don't like it when I can't do something and the person next to me can do it really well. I think jealousy is like right there.
It doesn't fit into one.
It kind of fits into all. I mean, I can work it for all of them quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it is an interesting thing. We exist very comparatively. Like, I think a while ago, before media, certain levels of being very poor weren't such a big deal because you were just in your village or you were in your town, even in our country, and you were just poor and everybody was poor and that was the way that it is. But now, if you're very, very poor, you're still watching television all the time or people are living an entirely different life. And that makes it really different. So it's interesting. I think it's easier to be content with what we have when we're part of our community around us and we have something similar going on. But it's very hard to be content with the fact that I only get to go shop at the thrift store in old worn out clothes, and I go to school and there's all these people, whatever. So I think that jealousy is a huge thing for us, just in that our minds are constantly doing this kind of comparison with other people, and comparison turns into competition really easily. And jealousy is right there in that. So.
Well, I was thinking specifically of jealousy that might arise. Remember the indulgent guru in the 70s could participate in sensual pleasure. Well, I actually lived through the 70s. I graduated high school in 1970, and I wish I'd been more indulgent, but too late now. But really, I tried to think from the point of view of a teacher, and if you compare that indulgence to perhaps eating meat, which is generally acknowledged to cause suffering, what's the lesser evil? The sexuality is lesser. If you approach it from a different point of view between adults, perhaps there's a teaching opportunity. It's only a destructive pleasure if it ends up resulting in hurt feelings of one or the other partner. Not the guru, but the left behind female companion. Like the guru goes on to someone else. But the point of the class is to examine our feelings and get to a better space, so it can become a lesson, and the guru can help us through the jealousy and get beyond it.
My guru seems to me to always be cooking up situations that are putting people right in the fire of their own jealousy. And not in the same way that you're referring to, but like just simply playing favorites, and not in an ongoing way, in a very changing kind of way, like I felt this before. I'm like feeling particularly needy of validation that day, and like he'll just like kind of when he's kind of walking into the room, he'll look right at the person next to me and be like, "It's so great to see you." Not look at me at all. Look right at the person on the other side. It's so amazing to see you. Thank you for being here. And then it's often at a point when I've been like working on a project and I'm feeling really like put upon and really full of myself and sorry for myself because I've been working on this project and nobody's been helping me and I've got this whole self-cherishing thing going, And then he'll kind of like come in and add that when I'm like totally needing this validation and then exactly like you're saying. So this is where we see our mind, and I think one of the big fallacies is that spiritual practice is to get to a point of peaceful and calm. It is to get to a point of peaceful and calm, and I do believe that the mind of a Buddha is incredibly peaceful and incredibly calm and serene, but not because it's shut out all of the uncomfortable things and holding itself in a little comfortable container, because we've all done that for periods of time. Like you just go away. You know, like we could all go live on a beach in Hawaii for a month and be pretty calm, happy people. You know, like that's not the big deal. But can we engage fully and bring this in, the stuff that triggers me, and then learn how to work with my triggers? With that, that's the point of the spiritual practice. So nirvana is to, and we'll get to that maybe later. You know, it's literally to blow out, but not to blow out existence, to blow out my mental afflictions. Jealousy is one of those top 5 or 6 mental afflictions. So to blow out, to distinguish those mental afflictions, not to ignore them and create a little bubble I can live in where that doesn't get triggered, but to do that. And so absolutely, in order to do that, we've got to have it coming up. And there's really nothing fabulous, like part of the support, you know, taking refuge in Buddhism is taking refuge in the Buddha, someone who's realized these things, the Dharma, the teaching, and then the Sangha. And so there's the sweet part that a Sangha supports each other, like it's very fun to come together. And then there's the part of like I'm dealing with these 17 people in our disagreement. We're a part of a particular Sangha. And with any group of people working to do anything together, our stuff gets thrown in there. And so that's a beautiful way that the Sangha supports each other, is that, everybody I work with is at some point going to be a mirror for me to see my own mental afflictions come out, and that's it. It's not, the goal is not to simply run and hide and avoid, and it's not pretty. It's for me, it's not pretty. It can be really painful and awful to see these things come up in my own mind, because again, my ego wants to think, oh, I've been practicing for a while, I don't have this, I don't have that. But the whole path is to see it and to really take responsibility for it, and then we can change it. That's the point. But it's a challenge, and so I totally agree. I think I can flip and look at all these gurus and the things they do. Like, it wasn't about them indulging, and it could have not been about them indulging. Like, I like to consider that it wasn't about them indulging in particular things. It was rather them looking at our culture and triggering our stuff. So here, they're coming to teachings, they're talking about all these stuff. The students were coming to teachings talking about these things, and we're totally getting ignited in our jealousy stuff, because, no, I want to sleep with that one. No, I want to sleep with it's like all of our stuff is just coming up right under the magnifying glass of the teachings, and it's beautiful. That's the point, really. It's not to just sit and pretend that we're all like something, so it's crazy stuff. Yeah. So, big topics. Your whole issue, Paul, is huge. That's huge. It's ongoing, and I love that you're really grappling and working with that so intelligently. It's a difficult question, and it's a temptation to just run away from it altogether. And I've seen a lot of people do that. And so the fact that you're just here I am in this complicated situation is so awesome. I love that. And Heather, the only thing is that I hope I didn't sound like I was belittling your suffering. That was kind of what I was hearing a little bit in yours. It's I agree. The other thing about this is no part of the path is about pretending that what we're feeling is not valid and real. It's all about learning how to feel what we're feeling actually more truly, because we all have some tendency to kind of deny it and not see it fully. So the practice is really to look fully at what is happening right here. And it's not to say that our suffering, your suffering here, is somehow less than somebody across the world doing, in some other conditions. It's really not to say. And it's not to say, get over yourself because you're not one of those 6 billion people that are doing that. I really did not mean to express that in any way. So I heard that point. Okay. Let's carry on. I think some more things will unfold. So we have this great list. It's always been one of my favorite lists. And then the cool thing is, so in our outline of this review class, the next thing we go right into is talking about karma. And we'll talk at the end of this whole course, the final 2 classes, maybe 2 more, will be all about karma. So we'll even go into more detail about it. But right now, in this particular class, at this juncture, we have the 4 laws of karma. spiritual practice really is, in terms of, it's really about the tendency of the 2-year-old mind, and the 2-year-old mind in all of us who are no longer 2 years old, is to just want to feel happy right now, and to want to manipulate all the current situation to get me to feel as good as I can right now. That's just the human tendency. It's called self-cherishing. That's the technical word for it. And it's just, that's our tendency right now. And that goes for not only human beings, but it goes for amoebas and dogs and everybody. If there's something hot that's burning, we run away from it. If there's something tasty and sweet, we run towards it. And that's just the way that living beings operate. The goal of spiritual practice is to start to understand what are the causes of happiness and what are the causes of suffering. And then in this moment, not so much be fixated on trying to manipulate and grapple with outer circumstances, or even manipulate and grapple with inner circumstances to try and produce pleasure right now, but it's to know what the causes for happiness are and to try to be, in this moment, planting the seeds for happiness that will come in the future. And then also, similarly, understanding what the causes of suffering are, and then working and having awareness to not plant the seeds for future suffering right now. So it's almost like what's arising right now in the present is almost, it's real and it's important, but it's almost inconsequential in a sense. Like it's just going to be the past in 5 minutes, And so, the one way to say it is to be a spiritual practitioner is to, rather than focus on results, like what's happening to me right now, but it's to focus on causes. It's kind of like, where's the trajectory of my life and where am I going, right? Like that. Okay. So let's and basically those 8 worldly thoughts that we had up, the thing is about like that in the context of this conversation, it's being driven by all of those thoughts, like constantly trying to manipulate things in the moment by those things, trying to get things, trying to feel good, trying to get praise, trying to get renowned, trying to always pull those things towards me and push their opposites away from me. It's living in that way, which is, that's the symptom of being driven by ignorance and misperception, ignorance, and then usually when I'm in the process of trying to manipulate my outer world to get the good things for me, to get all the good, all those good things for me, and to push away all those bad things, I hurt people to do that. Right? I'm willing to hurt people to do that. I'm willing to take the last cookie. I'm willing to cut in front of somebody, in front of the green light. I'm willing to, instead of sit there and be happy when my friend is getting praised for some work that they've done, I'm kind of in there trying to steal the energy and the limelight towards me. All of these various ways of trying to get the good stuff to come towards me in the moment. Usually that results in a whole bunch of actions, which are dismissing what other people want and just simply focusing on what I want. And it's that habitual state of being which perpetuates samsara, cyclic existence, right? That's what drives the wheel of samsara. Okay, let's talk about karma. So karma is this big word, and again, we're going to start to get really specific about it. So karma literally means action, to do, and it's defined, I guess this is its definition, is any movement of our mind, and the words and actions that motivate. The words and actions that follow upon the movement of the mind. That's karma. And karma sets into karma. So, and it's kind of like, we'll just talk about it this way. Karma is like, I think something, by thinking it, like that thought came up, it was like a movie that played out in my mind. There's a subconscious recorder which is on, videotaping that movie playing. And while it's videotaping, that tape is stored deep inside my subconscious mind as a dormant seed. And when that dormant seed will stay there, and when it'll continue, and when it ripens and it shines forth this movie onto the blank screen of the world, it will be similar. It will do that in a few ways. One is leg ngepa, it's definite. It's definite, it's certain, which means that it produces similar results. So this is Jesus saying you don't plant thistles and get figs. He's just saying that doesn't happen. So that's if I'm nice to somebody, and recorded in my subconscious is 5 minutes of being nice to somebody, in the future, when that seed pops open, it's going to be it's going to feel nice. It's going to bring pleasure to me. If I'm unkind to somebody, then when that seed pops open in the future, it's going to feel like suffering or pain to me. It's certain. And there's never a point when doing something kind to somebody else actually produces pain for myself. So it's an interesting thing. And so when we say good karma, a good deed is defined not in this system, not by the deed itself necessarily, but by what's the actual result of that deed. And that result of it is what is it going to bring to me in the future. If it's and it's similar, it follows these laws, it's definite. It's definitely going to produce, and it's just like seeds. It's so helpful to think of seeds. If I plant a watermelon seed, I'm going to get a watermelon. If I plant taking care of somebody else, I'm going to experience somebody taking care of me in the future. That's just the way that it is. Lepel tewa means it grows. So the recording device is on. Heather sees herself, Pamela sees herself going out and buying a cup for somebody to drink out of as thank you for sharing these things. And so the time it takes to plan that, to think about where to go and get it, and to go to do that, all of that process is being recorded on the mental continuum. That's all getting stored there, and it'll ripen in the future as a similar thing happening to you. You know, someone just coming up and giving you a nice present and being really thoughtful and appreciating work that you've done. You know, I mean, and that's why we're encouraged, you know, and showing some appreciation to you for some work that you've done. And in fact, anytime we get appreciation for work that we've done, it's because at some point in the past you appreciated somebody else for the work they've done. You took the time to notice that someone was doing something, which is big in itself, because usually what do we notice? What I do. I notice the good things I do, and I notice the bad things other people do. You know, but the other thing about it is that it grows just like a seed, right? These giant oak trees out here, I think those are oak trees, maybe sycamore, but sycamore is the same. You know, the seeds, these little acorns or these little sticky sycamore ball things, those are the seeds. They're these tiny little things we can hold in the palm of our hand. And they fall in the ground, all the right conditions are there, and they grow into this ginormous tree. And karmic seeds are exactly the same. We plant the seed, and the seed, as it stays and is replicated again and again and again inside of our subconscious, when it comes back to produce a result, it grows bigger. And they actually have numbers to say how big it grows, which I find funny. I don't know how we measure that. So these are the two really big ones. These two other ones are kind of like subsidiary ones, which are just kind of fun. Lema jepa danmi trepa. You can't, if you don't do it, if you don't do something, you won't get, how did I write that? Oh, the shorthand for this is don't do the crime, you won't get the time. If you don't do it, you won't get the result. And this is just kind of a restatement of the first one. So we kind of have, there's sort of this funny, there's this sense of this, I don't know, the lottery cracks me up. I was paying for gas the other day, and I happened to notice there's this like wall of lottery tickets. It's really changed since I was aware of lottery. I remember when lottery tickets came out, my mom and I would go get a scratch off, and this is like 20 years ago, this like this big thing. And now I'm like, wow, this is this whole thing. And it was so interesting for me to watch the guy in front of me who didn't seem to have a lot of money, like picking out how he was going to spend $20 on his lottery tickets, and I was just like. It was just such a disconnect. I couldn't really, but I think that it's a common tendency in our universe to think, like well, one, we just don't understand karma, but there's a tendency to think with the lottery, I somehow deserve the result of winning the lottery. And so without, without practicing any kind of giving or any kind of generosity, I'm going to win the lottery. I mean, it's just this funny kind of like thing. There's kind of like, I mean, you must expect something's going to happen if you're spending $20 that you don't really have on $20 worth of lottery tickets. You must be expecting some kind of a result, right? Like, and I think there's some kind of a sense of like, well, I just deserve $4 million. But this is saying, if you didn't create the causes for $4 million, you ain't going to get $4 million. Like that's just not going to happen. Like the universe, there's a constant. It works. Matter is conserved. So if we don't create the causes, we won't get the result. The fourth one, if we do create the causes, we will get the result. If we plant the seeds, we will get the result. A result will definitely come. This one has a star by it. So this one I like to use backwards because when something crappy is happening to me, I have a tendency to think, poor me, why is this happening to me? But if I really click into karma, the why is this happening to me question is like, well, let's go backwards. I'm experiencing this result. Let's see. Oh, I must have created the causes. And I think I very much heard your point yesterday, Paul, about that's not really so helpful because that just gets me to beat myself up. And at first, that does just get us to beat ourselves up. I think that's regular. After we go through that phase, it's actually a liberating sense of ability to change something. Like it's actually a liberating ability to change something rather than I'm saddled with it. And what are the other alternatives? This crappy thing happened to me, so either I created the causes for it at some time that I'm not even aware of, and I don't understand, and I'm caught in this web of misunderstanding, and I did create the causes. I'm responsible, and in fact, I have to reap the results, but yet I am responsible, and I can undo this web if I understand it. Or what are the other things? One is just totally random, and who knows why I got this awful thing happening to me. It's just a complete crapshoot, what crappy things happen when. And then the other one is that there's some creator, some kind of omnipotent being out there that's micromanaging things, and they gave me this problem to deal with. And that can be a very useful thing. We need a lot, particularly, I think we need a lot of people, well, in all traditions who have a sense of a creator God and have a very devoted kind of thing, they can say, this is God's plan. Like, I don't know the reason, I don't understand it, but I'm working with. This was given to me as a challenge to work with. And that can be powerful. And if that works for people, I think that is excellent. And in fact, when you get to the higher worldviews of Buddhism, it's very much similar. But I think for a lot of us, that didn't quite work, and we needed different answers. And when you're looking at some kind of a tragedy and you don't know how to work with it, I really want to stress, if that works, and I've seen beautiful, around here I happen to see more Christians, but I think Muslims are the same, I think Hindus are the same, I think Native Americans can be the same, of really operating in this sense of there's some creator with a big picture, and I don't understand the big picture, but this is part of it, and I trust that I was given this to work with. And that can operate beautifully for people. Buddhism doesn't take that route. It doesn't, well, it kind of, like I said, with the higher teachings based on understanding, we can get to a place where that's a shorthand and that works. But some of us also at some certain point didn't like that answer. It's just God's will, who can say. And some of us, if we don't feel that kind of faith and that kind of deep connection, that doesn't work for us at all. That just feels like helpless. And then we have these popular modern stories, like this modern kind of feeling of like God's like a mean guy that's up there just planning out mean shit to happen to people, right? Right? It can kind of feel. I think it was reduced to that in a lot of kind of common circles as people. Yeah, and as people's faith was out the door, that's what it feels like. If your faith and your connection to the divine is strong, that works. Stay there. If it's not, and you're out the door, and it's just some mean, powerful dude that's in charge of you, all that does is make us behave like rebellious teenagers and not take any responsibility and just live in kind of like blame. you know, and that's just not a useful place to be, you know, like that. So if I'm experiencing a result, I must have created the causes. If I want to experience a result, how do I go from there? I got to create the causes for it. Like, I got to create the causes. And the causes for a result that I want are what? They're similar to the results that I want. If I don't have money and I want to have more money, I'm generous. And it doesn't have to be with money, because it's hard to give money when you don't have enough to pay your rent. But I'm generous, an energy of generosity and looking to how can I support and sustain others. Like anything, it's all similar like that. If I want to have friends, be a friend. If I want to have people that are thoughtful and recognize the hard work I do, make a practice of noticing the hard work that people around me do every day, you know, and it might be little, it might be small things, because also karma grows. And at the end, we'll talk about how to really get in there with karma and make it grow, and kind of like that.
The question about, which was raised yesterday, we talked about true altruism. And I guess when I hear what you're saying, I think of the term that Trump used to use, spiritual materialism. And the way I understood that was that if you say, well, if I do this, then I'm going to get the result, it's like there's the ego investment in that.
I think
so to me, if it's really if you're doing this because it's a selfless thing to do, you're really doing it out of selflessness, then I could see how karma could work in that. Mm-hmm. But I think if you're saying though that if I do this, then I'm going to get this in the end, because I'm creating good karma for myself, I don't think it works like that.
Right. So here's the interesting thing and I totally hear you, and in the end, it will feel much more like that true altruism. So the big question is, how do I get from where I am right now, which is pretty much focused on myself,
right, to
that place of true altruism? And so fortunately, the Buddha did that and then laid out all of these practices. And here's kind of how it works. In the beginning, and I can say this because I had that same, I remember very clearly having that same argument. It feels so much more powerful and more kind of good in a really deep, spiritual, beautiful way, just to like see somebody need something and just go rushing over there to help, because I want them to have help. Like true altruism, just to recognize a need and just go there, then to stop and have a thought like, that person seems to need help. Oh, good, because I would like to have the result of having help in the future, so I got to go do the thing of helping them, like so that I can get help. And that sounds like it's actually a step backwards in terms of doing something. No, that's common. Right, because it's actually turning it into a selfish thing.
Right.
So here's the thing: in the beginning, maybe it's like this. This is off the cuff. When you're inspired to just do nice things, just do nice things. Just do nice things. This can help when you're not inspired to do nice things. Like, I literally have a recollection of, like, coming into, like, the room. There was one cookie on the plate. I was, like, in that mode where, like, I just want a cookie. Like, I'm, like, ready to grab the cookie from me. And then I'm, like, reaching out to take it, and I'm, like, I'm in a house with a whole bunch of people, and I know everybody's going to want the cookie. I'm like, I don't want to live in a world that doesn't have cookies in it in the future. Because at that time, that was the best that I could actually do. The state of my mind at that point in time was not such that, like, true altruism was existing. Because frankly, at that point in time, I didn't care about anybody else in the house. I was, like, tired and running and needing a little bit of, like, immediate I feel good gratification. And, like, it was all about, my mindset was all about me at that time. And I literally remember this teaching coming into my mind and being like, oh, no, I don't want to live in a world where there's not enough cookies for everybody. And it was very much about me, and it got me to actually do the right thing with intelligence. And so that was kind of how I started to work with it. And I think it actually, and then eventually it gets to the point where, like precious human rebirth, it's all about, we talked a lot about leisure and fortune and the situation that we have right now. everything that you have in your life right now, free time, abundance, extra resources to be able to do this on a day like this instead of do something else. Like all the things that we have in life right now are because you gave them to somebody else in the past. That's the only reason that this result is here, is that we shared. We all have enough food to eat because in the past we have shared food with other people. They say every meal that we've eaten this lifetime comes because we've given a meal away. Everything. The roof over our head comes because we have helped others have shelter. The fact that we feel safe enough to bike here or leave our car outside it's not a taken for granted neutral. We live in a place that's safe enough to do these things because we have given safety to other people in the past. So right now, this moment in time, we are the huge beneficiary of results that are ripening from past. And what we're choosing to do with it this time is reinvest it in ourselves, in our spiritual evolution, so that we can gain more capacity to help in a bigger way. So anytime, and so there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with that, because, and this is what I was wanting to get to yesterday that I might have missed the mark with, is we need a precious human rebirth. We need these kinds of resources. We need to not be concerned with Maslow's lower pyramid of concerns. Where am I going to eat tonight? Where am I going to stay tonight? I'm in danger right now. In order to just even think about spiritual things, all those things have to be taken care of for us. And so it's all a reinvestment. Anytime we do something to create all the good conditions that we need in the future, that's so that I'll have the resources to reinvest in others. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the path of the Bodhisattva, it's not like, oh, I gave away, what have we talked about? Oh, I gave away a cookie so that I'll get a cookie. No, it's going to grow. It's going to definitely come. It's going to grow. In the future, I'll get 15 cookies. And the idea is hopefully not that I'm going to run into the closet and eat all 15 cookies myself. The idea is that I'm going to share those cookies with other people. And I'm going to share it more and more intelligently, with the wish that more and more cookies, and even more, just with it, this isn't getting to the motivation, although we'll get to that later. The actual karma, we said a movement of the mind and the words and actions. So the action is sharing a cookie, but what's the mind thinking? If the mind is imbued with the thoughts of renunciation, may I give you a cookie and may we all be free of all obstacles that bind us in samsara. And I want to give you a cookie and may we all get totally enlightened, have all the conditions we need to get totally enlightened and get completely free. Then the act of giving a cookie, simply sharing a cookie, can be a bodhisattva act. And it turns the karma into a whole different thing. It takes it to a whole different level of a result like that. So, and part of it also, yeah.
So I understand movement of mind, and it's like being able to, the movement of the mind is referencing what you're thinking when you do it, right?
Yeah.
What you're thinking.
Yeah.
And if the thinking is really, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So even if you're not thinking that way, you're aware of the whole concept of karma, and therefore you do something, let's say generous, because you understand what karma is, even though you may not be feeling that way at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think maybe in some cultures, like say in India, everybody believes in karma. And so the one thing my teacher used to say, it's only dharma practice, meaning it's only actually a spiritual practice, if we're focusing on next life. And this is a Tibetan saying this, so this is very much within the context of believing in rebirth and believing in all those things super strongly. But which is to say, though, back to the spiritual materialism thing, if I'm just wanting to manipulate the world around me, and now I believe in karma, and I'm using that to manipulate the world according to the 8 worldly dharmas to get all the good things to come to Brandy and all the bad things to go away, in that kind of just a manipulative, I want to be happy and feel good right now, and I don't care what the expense is, and it has nothing to do with getting out of samsara or reaching enlightenment, it has nothing to do with that, then there's a way actually probably of working with karma that is not even particularly a spiritual practice. But it's also a great place to start, because I think it's a great place to start because in the end, all the stuff we think we want that's going to make us happy, it's not going to make us happy. In the end, we need to have clothes, we need to have friends, we need to have cars, we need to have a place to stay, we need to have all the comfortable things there. But once all that stuff's taken care of, getting more of that stuff isn't going to make us happier. What we actually need is our hearts to connect. And what we actually yearn for is actually the bliss of spiritual evolution and freedom. Like, we yearn to be out of this prison right here. So even if we're doing all of this without a motivation of renunciation or bodhicitta, which really officially is what makes it a Buddhist or spiritual kind of act, even if we're just acknowledging karma in this kind of a way in the beginning, it'll start to rework our mind to think in a different way, to think in the world of causes rather than manipulating things out there. And eventually, if we're really tuned into what we want, it will turn into an altruistic motivation. Because what we all want is to help others. That's what we all want. And the happiest times in our life are when we are helping others. It's when we're seeing others, loving others, having an open-hearted experience for others, having empathy for others' condition, and able to show up in some even small way and participate with that. That's when the human heart shines, and that's when we're touching into what we're meant to be. My teacher always says it's why all the movies are what they are. All the superhero movies exist. It's why, the Lord of the Rings and Frodo, the heroes going off, the unlikely heroes going off to save the planet. Like all of this archetype of the heroes saving the world, there's something deep inside of us that yearns for that. And in the end, that's the point of all of this. But even if we don't start out, even if it's just me in the closet with the cookie going, I don't want to live in a world with no cookie, because it was not really Dharma practice. It was so funny. But that was all I could muster at that particular moment. And I think there's a big danger. We connect with words like altruism, unconditional love. We connect with that. We've all connected. We've all had these experiences where our hearts are going open, we're like, unconditional love. But are we there all the time? I'm not. And when I'm not there, that word is so far away from me that it doesn't even touch my heart at all. When I'm in traffic and I'm late and I'm stressed and everybody's in front of me, like altruism and unconditional love, I don't even know what that means. It's gone. So I just need to know, okay, if you act like a butthead and cut people off and scream at people and are angry and want people to go away, you are going to live in a world of that. That's going to get bigger and be more. And that's kind of a selfish motivation, but it's okay. It can actually, at that time, at a very small, limited way, it can actually function to get me to do the right thing. The right thing in the sense of creating causes to loosen up my future. So I'm not pressed so tightly, and then I can do better, Like Pamela was saying, I'm stressed out right now. I'm really under pressure, and I can feel that oozing onto the people right around me, right? So we would love to create the situations where we're not in a pressure cooker, so that we can actually be a charming, uplifting influence on the kids and the people that live with us and our neighbors and our people right around us, while we're working towards enlightenment too, like that. Okay, you guys.
With regard to movement of the mind, one of the things that the Rinpoche said when he was here, control your mind, control your mind. Geshe-la has said that even the thought, the intention, that initial moment of what you might do to get something, and the intention behind it, that's what creates the seed. And that's the seed in its strongest and purest form. So the positiveness or negativeness of that initial intention is what creates the seed. And then it's the action that fertilizes it. And the action can be positive or negative. So a negative intention, a negative seed, can be further enhanced by a negative action or slightly softened by positive action. And into the future, the more positive the actions, the softer that seed becomes. But it is created and labeled, if you will, at that moment of thought. And that's why it's so important to control our thoughts and our minds, so that our initial intention and reaction is one of love and purity and positiveness, because then we help ourselves to create the positive karma that gives us the ability to help others. And so if the intention behind the action is, I need that so I can help others have it, karma knows. If the intention is, I need that because I want it, karma knows, right? And that's
That's totally, yeah. I love that. I need that so I can help more. or I need that because I want it. I mean, that's it right there, and that's, yeah. So it's okay to understand the mechanism by which we get all the things that do come to us. Because one thing, it helps us appreciate the things that we have. I mean, I take for granted on a regular basis. Like I remember, like Heather was saying, I probably won't end up on the streets of Calcutta this lifetime, and that's true. But it's even a deeper feeling like that. I don't even feel like I'll end up on the streets of Calcutta ever. I feel like at the fundamental way, there's something about Brandy that somehow is not vulnerable to be in that situation, and that's a mistake. There's nothing permanently me. My conditions is such now that it would take a whole bunch of weird things to happen, but it wouldn't be impossible. But anyways, I don't know where I was going with all that. But it's okay to understand the mechanism. And so the spiritual materialism thing that Trungpa Rinpoche was talking about, I think maybe if he was looking at this and saying that, he would be exactly. If it's ego saying, I want to manipulate the world to get what I want, and then yeah. But there's no problem knowing, and in fact, it's important that we know that all of our practice will bear fruit. Because here's what happens if we don't have a clear picture of karma and how things come into being. Like I said before, the spiritual path is about learning what steps I take to plant the seeds for suffering to end, for happiness to be gained, for true enlightenment happiness to be gained. It's knowing that, and we have to have a clear method of how it works. And if we understand how it works, we can actually see the steps we can take to make it work, and then we'll find ourselves making it work. So it's not a problem to know, and we hear this all the time, act without attachment to the outcome. And that doesn't mean don't know that you're going to get a result. It means this. It means how many times have you done something to help? Really, your motivation was to help, to do good on a project. You go to help, and then somebody's just like, why did you do that? No. And we have a tendency when that happens to just be like, what's your response when that happens? When you work really hard and put effort in, what's really the right motivation? I mean, clearly we missed the boat someplace because whatever we're doing didn't land as them experiencing help. But the motivation and the intention was right there to help. But if someone comes back with you at you like, why did you do that? What's your natural response to that?
You're asking a question?
Yeah, I am. I mean, or anybody. You're just right for me.
I guess it would depend on my state of mind at the time.
That's true.
So if I'm feeling centered, then I could respond.
Yeah.
But
no,
if I'm
not
not,
feeling
then I'll
centered.
get defensive.
Defensive, and then what would be the next step? I mean, for me, my next step would be like, I'm not doing that anymore. Okay, that was not what I bargained for. I didn't need to just spend those last 10 hours doing that thing to get yelled at. That's not what I don't need that. So, see, if we understand karma, like we just said before, karma is definite. So putting some serious time and energy into helping somebody with the proper state of mind, which is the wish to help, or even thinking about karma, or it's serving a project that you believe will help others, whatever, the result of that simply will be good things flourishing in the world. And it grows, remember? So it'll be lots of good things flourishing in the world. That law has to hold. But in this moment, what we've actually experienced is we've experienced ourselves putting in a lot of effort, and then we've experienced the result, the actual result, being somebody's in my face yelling at me, accusing me of all sorts of nasty things that were not at all my intention to do. So what's happening there? I mean, is this true? Because has everybody had that experience?
Karma ripening.
Yeah, but have we all had that experience of putting forth an effort and totally getting creamed? Right? So cause and result, right? See, that's the thing. If karma holds, and if this is true, in time they followed each other. In time, I did this deed to help somebody, and then the next thing they were yelling at me, telling me that the thing I did was not helpful. And and all the little people are like, oh, if karma is true, then that can't happen. That's breaking the first foremost. That's breaking what Jesus said, because you planted figs and you got thistles. And Jesus said, that's impossible. Yeah. So what must be happening here is that actually, at some time in the past, I did something crappy. My intention was to interact with someone and get something for me, right? To get something for me, or I let someone else down, or I didn't do a good job for somebody else. I didn't pay attention to what their needs were, and I did it poorly, and I didn't do it the way that they needed it, right? So what's happening is this thing I did in the past, which right now I'm totally unaware of, this seed that was planted in the past has ripened into this person yelling at me right now. This person yelling at me right now appears to have come from me having done this good deed, but this cannot exist. There is no connection between those two. And ignorance, the ignorance that keeps us bound in the wheel of samsara, is our belief that this is the true line of cause and effect. I helped somebody and they yelled at me.
Because the anger that would come from feeling like they yelled at you without justice, that would put more negativity into the world rather than being grateful for the growing of the negative karma in such a small way.
Yeah. I mean, all of it, and then however we respond, usually for most of us, if we put in a good effort to help, where do we get these things like, better look out for number one?
Or like no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing, because, no good deed goes unpunished. Because of these experiences, it's regular, because we're all in our little box of like, what did I do that was so beneficial, and nobody else is doing as much as I am, and nobody else is helping. We're all living in that box. So we all over-exaggerate the things that we do to participate and to help, and we all under-exaggerate and play down what everybody else is doing to help. Like, that's just our human bias from where we sit. Like, right? The theory of relativity. Like, I'm sitting in a seat, and so I notice a certain kind of thing. And so this is just this huge thing. If we can understand karma, then that understanding can help us in the moment when we have put a tremendous amount of work in with a good attitude and a good intention, like a high intention, and we're getting berated for it. It can help us in the moment because we can be saying, oh my God, this is so hard. This sucks. I'm struggling right now. And rather than deciding I'm never going to do anything to help again, rather than deciding I'm never going to volunteer my time to help at a spiritual organization again, because they're some of the most unorganized, so it makes it the most frustrating and chaotic. Rather than deciding that, I'm going to recognize, okay, that person just yelling at me burned up some old crappy karma where I just, I was taking advantage of somebody, or I wasn't really in the game to help, or whatever. And all of that effort that I put in to help, it will produce results. It didn't go nowhere either. All of that work was not for nothing because it was wasted, which is how it feels in the moment. All of that work is definite. Those seeds were planted, and they will produce results in the future. And in order for us to keep going on the spiritual path, if we don't have a strong concept of this, we will over and over again work hard, get creamed, and give up. Well, we'll work hard and get creamed a bunch, and then eventually we will likely give up. We have to have some kind of understanding of how it works. And so it's okay to know that all of our good work will produce results. And it's okay that we will be the beneficiaries of those results. Because the biggest resource that everyone in this room has to offer the planet is you getting enlightened as quickly as you can. We could all exhaust ourselves in the service of others this life, and we would not make a dent in the suffering that is occurring on the planet. Exhaust yourself in the service of others. It's fine. It's good. It's a good thing to do. But that is not the way that we are going to end suffering alone, by itself, right? We could go give our whole life to feeding hungry people just in this town, and we're not going to take care of the problem of people being hungry. We know that, right? Not to say don't go feed hungry people.
Right.
But that's not enough. That's only half of it. And we have to know that the good work we do is going to produce a result. That's the spiel. This is the illusion. This thing that we have bought into that leads to no good deed goes unpunished. I got to look out for number one. I got to look out for me. This whole dog-eat-dog world, the nice guys never get to the top. All of that comes from falsely believing in this line of correction. If I don't elbow my way in and put down the other guy trying to get the promotion, I won't get the promotion. Right? It's a common idea in the world that we live in because they seem to appear in line with each other. But if the jerk who just plays golf with the boss and put down everybody else in line for the promotion to get himself there, if he does a bad thing and then turns around and gets the promotion, it looks like one caused the other, but again, that does not exist. That is not true causality. He'll get his. We're not supposed to feel happy about that. My daughter, this is the only part of karma that she's embraced. The fact that all the mean people, she's like, well, karma will take care of them. And I'm like, that's not really the way we're supposed to go with this, but okay, if that's we're connecting in your 15-year-old mind. And so really this is cause for compassion, because the more crappy and mean and suffering, the more suffering I'm causing others, and the more suffering I see somebody else causing others. I don't know what's on in their mind, but the more suffering is in store for them. The more wicked and gnarly and stuck and the worse behavior that somebody's exhibiting, if they're really feeling that way inside their heart, they're just going down the road for a whole lot of pain, And so am I when I'm in that state, creating lots of karma.
When I look at just why I do what I do lately is, let's say, so if I'm driving and someone cuts me off, something that would have, let's say, previously I might have reacted in a negative way, the reason why I don't do that I'm not thinking about karma. I'm thinking about, I'm working on being present. If I get upset, I'm not going to be present. So even if it's, I'm just enjoying the day, someone does something that upsets me, and I get upset. That's what I don't want to do. I want to avoid getting upset. So does that have to do with karma? Or is that something else?
I don't think that has to do with karma. I think that just has with, like Cameron said a minute ago, just taking control of our mind. Because you've recognized that the experience of getting upset just disturbs my own peace of mind.
That's right.
And that's the definition of a klesha, a mental affliction, is that which disturbs my own peace of mind when I have it. So you've recognized, it's not worth it. Okay, I get upset. Maybe he did something stupid. I get upset, and then I'm the one that has to suffer. They say anger is like taking poison and expecting the other person to drop down dead. It just doesn't make any sense at all. So I don't know that. It doesn't work with karma in that you're not thinking about it.
I'm not creating. If I don't react,
I think it's just controlling your mind in the present moment, and you're kind of like, okay, I'm at a crossroads. In the past, I could have gotten angry and gotten upset, but I know where that goes. I have the wisdom. I've seen. I know where that goes. I know I'll be fuming, and my channels and my winds and my breath will be all disturbed for 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30. And once we get going, our mind starts spinning on other things, and that's just a place I don't want to go. I think that's just wisely getting control of the mind.
Okay.
I think it's fabulous. That's part of mindfulness.
Just saying that's what I'm. Yeah. I don't think in terms of karma.
No, that's fine.
Until listening to this.
I relate to that method a lot because I kind of use both, and I go back and forth. I kind of go back and forth of once you have an internal practice and you know what it is like to feel peaceful, and there are the moments when you're at it and you have the free will to intentionally decide which way to go. And then it's of course. And then the great news is that we're not going into it, but the way that karma ripens is that it's also just really forming a habit. It's just forming a habit. So you're overriding, you have developed the mindfulness and presence, the space to make a conscious decision at that moment. Where maybe 20 years ago there was no conscious decision there. It was just, they do something, boom, I'm angry. And that feels like the only response to the situation. But you've created enough space and free will in that moment to make the conscious decision to not get angry. And every time we do that, you strengthen that habit and create more space for yourself in the future. Like that's where the karma plays in. That's becoming a pattern.
Right.
It's actually becoming an ingrained habit in the mind to just be like, all right, this is a pivotal moment. I could get angry. I could be tweaked about this. Or I can just stay, and then maybe it starts to catch up in our interpersonal relationships when somebody's triggering us at home, which is even a little more salient. The person that knows just which button to push, maybe eventually when they're like pushing that button, and for the whole previous 12 years of our relationship, that would send me immediately into a tizzy, and there would be doing our thing again. Maybe there's like suddenly more space, and it's like, okay, I know where that goes. That doesn't really work. That doesn't get us anywhere. And then there's more room to exercise staying present, staying grounded. And when we're present and we're grounded, we can actually listen to the other person, and often, and then we can communicate. Rather than once I got triggered, all the mental afflictions, jealousy, anger, fear, strong attachment, grasping, desire, all of these things, pride, are very narrow and tight. They have a narrow, tightening quality on the mind, whereas this that you're talking about, this moment of mindfulness and where you make a decision, that's a spacious, kind of open, available thing. So,
and I say that's great. And are you creating then good karma by doing that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because you're creating the habit pattern of staying open, and present, even amidst circumstances that would have previously triggered a closing down and a reactivity. And so it can expand. And I think when we then take that to a bigger extreme, do you have people that you've seen in your life, like certain things trigger me, like watch the Dalai Lama or somebody like that, or like you see the old movies of Mahatma Gandhi when he's trying to free his country and all these terrible injustices are being, wrought. But he's there talking to the British officials who are trying to get him under control. And he's with them, and he's not on the defensive, and he's not like, you need to stop. He's just like open and happy and there and listening to what they have to say, and he's no pushover. Like, he's no pushover. He's not budging a bit. He knows what he stands for, and he's standing for it, but he's not tight and constricted and closed and against, So that versus like what you see if we watch like whatever show they show, like Congress nowadays, right? Like no listening, no openness, no anything. Everyone's in a tight, constricted, me, my view war instead of that space of openness. So like, yes. So karma, another way to think of karma is habit. And literally when we're talking about like elasticity in the brain, it's setting up currents and patterns in the brain and rewiring the brain so that we go from being reactive and immediately angry and reactive to things to knowing through wisdom and experience, I just want to stay spacious and open, and then this situation's just going to pass. It's going to pass in the terms of the driver, and then it's going to go to a different place in terms of communicating at home with somebody that I care about. So all of that is totally karma. Yeah. I do like thinking about karma as habit. This is the traditionally kind of way. Karma as a habit is a great way to think about it because it plays right in with our understanding of neuroscience and the way the brain actually works, right? That habits can change. And how do they change? By doing things differently. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, we talked a lot about, my notes go back to renunciation. So again, renunciation has to do with being more concerned with planting seeds for the future than manipulating this me getting what I want right now. So it's interesting. I mean, maybe it would add to the power of it in that moment when you're at the choice point and you have the space to decide, I'm not going to get angry because I don't want it to trigger a whole anger response that I've been stuck in. While this person drives off in oblivion. And I want to become very familiar and habituated to the space of openness so that I can stay open and free eventually in all situations. And I would say that's the definition of nirvana, right? Nirvana is blown out all mental afflictions. Think of the qualities of mental afflictions. They're self-centered, they're tight, they're narrow-minded, they're fearful, they're contracted, they're not open. Like the more angry we are, we go all the way on the spectrum to completely unavailable to have have any kind of understanding, have any kind of like relation, communication with somebody else. So what would it be like to blow all of those out? It might feel like being in that open, spacious place all the time, regardless of what's going on. So I think it'd be a great way to even pump that up by like, yeah, and wouldn't this be cool all the time? And wouldn't I be a powerful influence on whoever I'm around if I could be like the Dalai Lama when he's having this conversation, right? So what if wouldn't we? What I mean is just staying open and really hearing people all the time and really seeing people all the time. Wouldn't we be helpful? Wouldn't we be a helpful example? And, that's cool. That makes it bodhicitta as well. Okay. This question, this is on the homework, so for those of you doing the homework, it just says, which of the three principal paths cause each of the two bodies? So this is the whole thing. But, so what are the three principal paths? We'll just use it as review. What are the three principal paths? Renunciation. What else? Bodhicitta. And correct view. And what are the two bodies of the Buddha? Form body, Rupakaya. And it has two forms, the one that was emanating to help all beings, and it had the one that was at the perfect party. I kind of get a picture now of like you in like a swinging 70s suit with like long hair and beads and like satin, belly butts at the perfect party. That's now become my Shambhogakaya imagery, and I'm enjoying that thoroughly. What? Oh, it's what David calls bell bottoms. Oh. Form body, and then the mental body, what's the other one? Dharmakaya, the mind. So, form body, Rupakaya, I don't know what else to call it. What's Dharma body? I don't know. Wisdom. With the wisdom. Yeah, anyway, the Dharmakaya. The Dharma body. We'll just mix languages. The Dharmakaya. Okay, so these are the causes. This is the result. Eventually down the road, but then even on the way. And what they say is bodhicitta and renunciation really almost being two things, right? We said recognizing our condition of suffering and wanting to get out. Bodhicitta recognizing the condition of myself and others and wanting to get out so I can help others get out. Those are the same thing. And those practices and all the things associated with those practices, often with bodhicitta we're talking about giving and practice of generosity and ethics and helping other people and all those kinds of deeds. Those deeds go, they don't call it karma. The accumulation of the merit done practicing those things go to create the form body of the Buddha. And the accumulation of the wisdom, so there's merit. They don't talk about, it's funny, the Buddhahood is produced, like right now what's producing my samsaric experience is karma. In this way of like seeds planted and then seeds ripening, forcing me to have a certain perception of myself and the world that I'm in. That's how they say our world is produced right now for each one of us. The whole thing functions the same for a Buddha, but you don't call it karma anymore because the word karma means that it's tripped up in misunderstanding, in a wrong view. At this point, it's merit. Merit has to do with bodhicitta and renunciation. And then the collection of wisdom, they're called the collections of merit and wisdom, or the practice of correct view, understanding emptiness, which we will talk about more today, goes to produce the Dharmakaya, the Dharma body. So that's just a homework question. Not so essential if this is your first foray into this stuff. Although it's cool. It comes up from time to time throughout the future. Okay, and then there's a question, is there any relationship between these three principal paths, these three principal realizations, and the tantric path and Tantra? You know, in Tantra, like, a successful tantric practice is when it starts to occur to us that I live inside in a sacred world, and that somehow there's some guiding force that is like, seems to be conspiring in spite of all of the obstacles I throw in my own way repeatedly. There seems to be some force conspiring to get me to freedom, conspiring to help me grow up, like fully, in the sense of grow up into what my full capacity is, which is an enlightened being, conspiring to get me to like, you know, and that it feels like when I need some inspiration, I can just be on my way to work, and that inspiration can come in the form of a song I hear on the radio, or an interview with a scientist I hear on the radio, or a billboard that I see, or a Facebook post from a friend, or whatever. Like successful tantric practice is when it starts to occur to us on a regular basis that all the resources I need are at hand. They're all right here, and they all show up in exactly the time and the way that I need. And it starts to occur to us that I actually have everything I need. I'm not perfect right now. Like there's work to be done. So it's like this both thing. Tolerance for ambiguity. Tolerance for, what was the word? Paradox. Same. There's work to be done here. There's work to be done, and it's also perfect. Like when it starts to kind of dawn, it's also perfect. And all the struggles that I have to go through, and all the struggles, like all the particular flavor of my own obstacles and my own internal demons and self-obstacles that I have to face, they're all kind of somehow perfect. Because in the process of coming up against these things again and again and again, I'm learning a certain set of skills, and then I can help other people. And because I can really only help other people when I can really understand what they've been through and what they're going through, right? Then I have a new capacity. So my set of struggles, which I'm still engaged in, I'm still working through, like they still get me down a good amount of the time, somehow it's all perfect. Somehow this is all part of the process. And even though sometimes the fog comes over my eyes and I feel like I'm very alone in this world, and I feel like I have no guidance and I have no hope and I'm the worst thing or whatever, like even though that comes in, like, no, beyond this kind of veil that covers my mind, my eyes sometimes, out there, somehow, something has a plan, has some direction that's happening. Somehow it's all moving in this beautiful way. That's kind of tantric practice. It's called pure view. And successful practice, that starts to dawn on us more and more. And we actually start to feel a sense of gratitude for not only all the people that have helped us, well, for all the people that have helped us, and whether that help looked like them helping me, or whether that help looked like them being a pain, hurting me, or being a pain, being an obstacle. A sense that all of those things were a part of getting me to where I am right now. And all of those things that are currently happening are also a part of that. So even the person that I'm totally pissed off at right now, somehow they're part of this process of kind of, I'm like this diamond in the rough that needs to be ground against, you know how diamonds are made, right? They're ground against another wheel of diamond with like heat and fire and noise, and like it's not pretty, right? Like somehow I'm this diamond in the rough, and I need to be like shined up so that I'm this beautiful gem that I'm meant to be, and like, so that's successful tantric practice. The question is there a relationship between renunciation, bodhicitta, and correct view and successful tantric practice? If you're not familiar with tantra practice, it also can look like having a deity and a mantra and imagining that you're receiving blessings from this deity, and imagining, and the Tibetan practice is very full of that, as is, all the practices with Shiva and Kali and, all over Asia. This is a big, big practice, all of this. And so, so basically the answer is the three principal paths are the cause for what I just talked about, a successful tantric practice. And you can sit and look at a picture of a deity and visualize some kind of angel and recite mantras until the end of time, and nothing will actually happen unless you have the three principal paths. unless we have some kind of this understanding inside of our heart.
So it's like maybe we get them enough so we get to that point, and then we're at that point.
Yeah, it's not like so this is a recipe book, right? It's step by step by step, but it's not like we have to like complete step 1 before we progress to step 2, before we to step. It's very circular, and they're kind of like feeding each other. And what you're already tasting is that there's so much going on that my mind certainly can't have all of it in there at the surface all the time. So we find ourselves focusing in certain ways at certain times. And part of the beauty is we're led back to think about other things, you know, and then, yeah. Any questions at this juncture, or thoughts, concerns, ideas?
Is it the same with like coming to that thought truly that everything's happening exactly how it should, and this is coming up because of this, and there's like this big plan. I would imagine it'd be like getting used to it, working with karma or working with anything, any new idea really. Like at first you're sort of not really totally sure if it's true or not, or sometimes you might think it is and other times it's not. But then you sort of practice and work with it and test it out, and then over time it becomes more automatic, and it truly feels like reality for you.
Very much so. Very much so. And it occurs to you naturally. Like it's just, you know, we're interpreting things constantly. Like it's not like when I say this is the way it is, like that's not true. This is my present moment interpretation of the way that it is. Very much so. Very, very. That's exactly what karma is. It's the way that I interpret things right now. And so, yeah, so the more we practice, the more quite naturally we'll just be interpreting. If does anybody know Reverend Brian Baker? I mean, this guy, like, so he's the dean of the Episcopal Church in town, and like, he's just like this shining example of like this, like, he lives in the light of God. And he's so funny because it's not like he, like, I mean, we hang out all the time, and I'm constantly, I'm always going, God damn it. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, that's pretty, I wonder if that's like annoying. But it's like he doesn't even say that, so he's not at that level of like the God people that were, I'm always like, I know I'm going to be inappropriate in this conversation. I wasn't raised around it. I don't like, you know, I have this like rebellion against it at a certain pace, but I wasn't even raised in it. So it was like, you know, but like, he's just like, it's like it occurs to him on a regular basis. It's just God's got this magical plan, and my job every day is to just show up and like make myself of service. And that's what he does, and he lives this enchanted, awesome little magical life that like blesses everybody that he's around, and he's just like delightful. Like, you know, and he's not trying to put his trip on people at all. Like it's just like and that to me is a successful tantric practice. You know? And I've seen him when things go wrong and things are hard and they're challenging. And it's like, he doesn't ever get like the dour kind of thing over. It's like, okay, that's what we're doing now. Change of plan. Like, and it just, but with total positivity. And it's like, I mean, it's so great. Yeah. So none of this is the language of Tibetan Buddhism, but it's not, I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that it's exclusive to one particular path. I do like the way that it's laid out here. It's helpful for my mind because I'm not a natural Brian Baker person that just has this like kind of, not that he's an incredible scholar too, but it's not that, you know, like, and he's worked hard, so it's not to say that he hasn't done those things. But okay, we are officially on to class 2. There's a lot of, okay, Bodhicitta. We're going to dive a little bit more into Bodhicitta. We've talked about it a lot. What are the 2 words that make up Bodhicitta? Anybody? What's mine? Citta is mine. And Bodhi?
Is awakened?
Awakened. Yeah, awakened. Same root as Buddha. Buddha, Bodhi, same root. I can't remember what it is. Awakened mind. So what this does not mean is the mind of a Buddha. Like, because then you're a Buddha. You have the mind of a Buddha, you're a Buddha. Bodhicitta, so that is literally the word. What it means is the mind, like, I have a mind to become awakened. Like, so it's as we've said, it is the wish to get enlightened. So it's two things. It's the wish to get enlightened, in order to benefit others. That's really so it's those two things. The wish to reach enlightenment myself, to remove all my suffering, so that I will be able to help others. So the Tibetan word, Jangchub, Jangchub Semkye is the Bodhicitta part, and then the word Sangye, that's their word for Buddha. Okay. Anyway, well, Jangchub, this is to purify, and so it's Jangchub Semkye, the mind of enlightenment. It's another word for bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is Sanskrit. This is Tibetan. Jangchub Semkye refers to purifying the two obscurations, and there's two obstacles that we face right now, and so bodhicitta. So bodhicitta has a way of purifying our obstacles to peace. Do you need a pen, Leah?
I found one.
You found one, great, because I have some in my bag. Okay, if that doesn't work, that bag.
But I found a couple pens, so nobody.
Yeah, I know, that's the problem. There's some that aren't dead in that bag right behind you if you want to use those. There's two obstacles that we're facing. One is the obstacles to peace. These are called the afflictive obstacles. Mental affliction obstacles is like the formal word. And then the nyondrik, the afflictive obstacles. And then the obstacles to omniscience. When one reaches nirvana, step one, they get rid of the obstacles to peace, the afflictive obstacles, the mental obscurations. But they still have the obstacles to omniscience. And so bodhicitta is really fully cutting away the obstacles to omniscience. And it's very nice because it's so cool because bodhicitta is this process, right, of expanding my frame of reference from a very small, self-cherishing, me-centered frame of reference, expanding that boundary so that my frame of reference becomes the concerns of others. That becomes just as important as this frame of reference. So it's so nice that bodhicitta then, of course, is the cause for living as a being who has no more obstacles to omniscience, so that the boundaries of our mind have been, there's no inherent boundaries to our mind, what we can know, what we can feel, what we can see. Like, I'm not inherently stuck over here in this perspective, but right now I am stuck over here because that's the habit pattern that I'm living out right now. That's the past karma that I've planted. So the seeds of practicing bodhicitta ripen, we are actually freed of these barriers and boundaries that keep us locked in this place, which is very nice. And so I think there's, in this, and then as such, so this gets back to the four bodies of a Buddha, as because the boundaries have been thrown off our minds, the capacity of our minds entirely, we then have these other two bodies, this emanation body that can go out and serve all other beings, and this perfect party body in our disco suit. We can then have those experiences, and that's only because the second step of obstacles have been removed. And that's only because we've recognized the absolute malleability and availability of our mind, our full Buddha nature, our capacity to be limitless, and then we've practiced to reach that limitlessness. Yeah.
I have a kind of an idea of what it means. What does
Omniscience?
Yeah.
Omniscience spells like that, who knows what it means? Omniscience? Omniscience means like to know everything. And what I was saying yesterday, when we hear that, we think it like you're the Encyclopedia Britannica, or I guess today it's Wikipedia or something. You become the brain of the World Wide Web. It's not that. I think it's more like in the sense of it's like an experience of your heart expanding to have the actual experience that everyone has. Like it's more like,
encompassing kind of thing?
yeah. So total freedom, we have both of these. And the cool thing about that is we reach this kind of total freedom. We reach the absolute limits of the capacity, which is unlimited, of our own potential. So that's great. That's a happy, happy place to be for ourselves. And then the really cool part about that is the place of most benefit, where we're actually the most helpful to others as well. So having a sense of this idea can be very, very helpful to help us come up against some kind of cultural thing that we carry that I think has been a misconstruing of multiple kinds of teachings, that there's some kind of sick martyr complex, like what it is to be a good Christian is to suffer, you know? What it is to it'd be hearing the teachings on, I am a self-cherishing, I have self-cherishing so strongly, I'm a self-cherishing being, so my spiritual practice is going to be to abuse myself, to beat myself up. And that exists in India, and that exists in the, in the Christian tradition. I'm sure it's in Judaism somewhere, Catholicism, like it's kind of all over. But I don't know, like talking to Reverend Baker, he's my best source for like the, his interpretation of what Jesus was talking about. And I think we hear it in Jesus' teaching, like, pick up your cross and follow me. Like, and that we hear that as like, carry this heavy burden and follow me. But he wasn't really saying that. He was kind of like saying, like, pick up the potential of your heart, what you're meant to be, which is free and happy, and like, drop all the other storyline and just have single-pointed renunciation and bodhicitta on your spiritual practice, and then we can come to live in the kingdom of heaven, because it's right at hand.
So the cross is the symbol of our unforgiveness.
Shoot, you called me on it. I can't quite remember how it goes. I'm new to all this Christian stuff.
The cross?
In my mind, it was symbolic. So I can't quote, because I know I'm listening to the teachings and I'm always interpreting it in a Buddhist kind of way. So I can't, and then I haven't scholarly. Yeah. No, it's good to remember, like, because so that was just the feeling I had when I was hearing this teaching about those words of Jesus and the misinterpretation of them. But I don't remember in their system what it refers to. I get in trouble. I have some. It's so funny. It's so funny. I can remember many systems, but whenever it talks to remembering the details of like Christianity, like I have my brain becomes like this. I'm not a good student. I'm a very leaky lot. It's just not enough. I mean, I feel more like I come from the East. Like I relate to that a lot more than I relate to So important. I think sweetly important. The best thing we can do for ourselves is also the best thing that we can do for others. Like sweetly, sweetly important. Today the theme of the yoga class that I went to was self-love. And I love my teacher. It's my really important teacher who always teaches exactly what I need. But then there's this way of wording which is common in like the yoga self-help word. It's like, you've left everything behind. You're here for you. And that's true, and that's really, really important. But like when we do this kind of stuff for ourselves, it's really important to have a sense of, this is for me because it is the best thing that will make me the happiest, and it's also for everybody else that I know. Because I'm here to learn something, to expand something, to deepen my place of peace so that I can have a bigger sphere of peace when I go back into the world, when I go back to relate. So, like, that kind of, it's not an either or. It's not either I'm working for myself or I'm doing something to help others. It's actually, they both come together here in bodhicitta. Like, it happens to just be that both, is the best, is the most important thing. I said it before, our long-term approach really is to enhance the mind which cherishes others, pays attention to what others need, and to diminish the self-cherishing mind, which is just constantly thinking about Brandy's perspective and what Brandy needs. Things that bodhicitta, this deep, passionate wish to get enlightened in order to benefit others, things that it is not. Bodhicitta is not being a nice person. Bodhicitta is not doing extra dishes. Bodhicitta is not always being the one to clean up the snack table. Bodhicitta is not going to work early because 5 times this week because somebody is struggling to get a job done and you go to show up. Bodhicitta is two things. It's having a sense of, in this lifetime, maybe that's not part of it, I must, as quickly as possible, get enlightened so that I can help others get enlightened. Sometimes, it very much could look like being a nice person, and it should. If we're getting meaner, and we're claiming to be on a bodhisattva track, there's a problem there. And if we're getting less helpful to the people around us, there's a problem there. But, here's the thing. bodhicitta means looking at very clearly what are the practices that I need to do that are the most significant and important right now to get me enlightened. And it's going to change from time to time. Sometimes it might be a lot of service. Sometimes it might be I need to meditate an hour a day, which means I need to clear other things. I have to go to work this many hours a day. I have to do these things. They're pretty immovable right now in my life. Like, I just have to do that. And so maybe I need to back off on my agreements and my commitments to help other people get newsletters out and do whatever. Maybe sometimes it might look like I have to back off so that I can make time to meditate. It is not bodhisattva activity to be spending all of your free time in service to something else and not doing your personal meditation practices that you need to do in order, which is the other vital part of this whole practice, right? It's getting the mindfulness so that we can have the clarity to make those decisions in the moment. So that's the thing about bodhicitta. And Winston was actually very strong in this. And it shouldn't be in our language of somebody does something really nice to help us, and we go, you're such a bodhisattva. Because bodhicitta is not my pattern, which is to do nice things so that people like me. That has nothing to do with bodhicitta. That's a neurotic pattern, and my particular way that it plays through is I'm nice. Other people might just be a jerk to get people to think they're cool. That might be just as neurotic of a pattern, and so it's more socially acceptable to be nice to get people to like you. But if that's what's going on underneath, that's not bodhicitta, and it's really important to not encourage that in other people, to have that sense, and it's important to see that kind of like in ourselves. Like, a bodhisattva is one thing, is somebody who has awakened this deep, who has got the vision. Wait a minute. Enlightenment really, now I'm starting to understand things. The more we understand how it could work, the more it seems pliable, possible to us, and the more the steps start to fall in place and how I can take the steps to get there. And then the more we start to believe that it can happen. So a bodhisattva is one that this kind of vision has woken up inside of them. It's like, dang, that sounds far-fetched, and the first time I heard about like the emanation body and some party body, like I'm like, what? I don't know, that sounds like a weird cartoon. But now that I'm like grappling with this stuff, it's actually starting to make sense. I can feel my capacity expanding. This is starting to make sense. This vision might be true. And if it might be true, I am going to spend this life and every waking moment participating in getting there wholeheartedly. And so then life becomes about what are the most important things that I need to do to make that happen. Sometimes it's service. Service is an incredibly important piece of that. Because again, giving away what we want to have more of, like that. So all the service to our churches and our Dharma centers is very, very important because we're sharing Dharma. Why? So that I will realize these things inside of my own head. If you have a light bulb go off one day, and your head, like you're just going for a run, you're driving, and your light bulb goes off, where did that come from? The light bulb went off because you somehow helped share some kind of light bulb giving experience to somebody else. And it could simply be showing up 20 minutes earlier to open the space and create it, and create the space for somebody else. It could be, printing a homework. It could be running around and getting a cup. It could be all of those things, right? So service is incredibly important, but not to just so-heartedly get lost in that at the detriment of the other. Because it might be important sometime to go to your boss and say, I know this is not convenient, but I need to take a month off and go do a solitary retreat. Because that's what I need to do in order to get enlightened. And that's how I'm really going to help. Because every job we've ever worked, all jobs are just consuming lives and spitting them out and going on to the next generation, right? I mean, whatever company you're in, whatever industry we're in, all of that. It's like, and it's fine to participate in that. But don't give your whole life force to it, right? Like, where's the edge? Okay. The feeling of bodhicitta, I just love this. Bodhicitta is this fierce warrior-like passion to reach enlightenment, based on an understanding that samsara is futile and all temporary help that I give other people is just a Band-Aid, right? Right? Like we need to do what we can to help But we could devote our lives to one person. We could make them comfortable. We could give them things. What's going to happen in the end? They're going to die. And then I'm going to die. Or I'm going to die and then they're going to die. Like, it's all a Band-Aid. Once we start to get a vision of something else, then, like, that's what I need to do. And sometimes it might look like saying, you know, for me to my, like, 13-year-old daughter, I've got to go away for a month. I'm leaving you in safe hands, and you're comfortable there. I'm not going to desert you so that you're, like, traumatized for your entire life. But, like, I've got to go away, you know, and do this thing. And because we have to set it up so that it can happen in a nice way, you know, that's not causing whatever. The feeling of bodhicitta is like what I said yesterday. It's like we're all on a ship that's going down, or we're all on an airplane that's just plummeting towards the earth. That's the feeling. It's this, we're all in the same situation together. You know, and all of the bickering and the scrambling, you know, to like be the one that got the better seat or got the better meal or got the attention 5 minutes ago, when we're aware of the fact that the ship is going down, that's all out the window, and there's this huge equalizing force that connects my heart to everyone else's. This is our situation. And, you know, and do I have the vision to realize that I can step up and do something about it? Like that. Any questions? Ideas? Thoughts? Bodhicitta is cool. I think that I like to think of it as think of all the great people that have really done big things in their lives. Like, I mean, I think of like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, like Nelson Mandela. Like, these people had a vision. It might have seemed impossible to everybody around them at the time, but they had a vision and they just stuck on that course. And sometimes they got support, and sometimes they got totally, like, hammered, right? But their vision was immovable because they had a vision, and this vision was bigger than what anyone else around them could see, right? Like, it was impossible that the civil rights thing was going to happen. But Martin Luther King Jr. he had that vision, and he held it, right? Even when, you know, Molotov cocktails or whatever are getting thrown in the living room of his house. You know, like even when, like that kind of thing. And a bodhisattva is like that. It's just like having that kind of vision. And I just also like to think of the people that I've been around that feel to me like they have bodhicitta. They have this unwavering thing. And so it's like the hassles that come, and they face some big hassles, they don't seem to bother them the same way. They're like, it's like, have you ever been like that? You're just working on something and you're somehow so motivated towards it and on it. It's just like, at that moment, the problems that come, like the big old waves that wash over you, you might get tumbled or knocked off for a little while, but then you're back on track again. Lama Zopa Rinpoche doesn't sleep at night. They say, like, the story is like, you know, just his bodhicitta, his sense of urgency and his love for beings is just so strong that he doesn't even have the physical need to sleep. Which I don't hold it, like, it inspires me. I don't want to learn to not sleep because I really love sleeping. I'm not even at the point of wanting to be able to give that up. Like, oh my God, a rest. But it's that kind of thing. You know, it's just that kind of thing of just not even. He goes to attendance like constantly because they have to be up all the time. Like getting some text and making some phone call across the planet to somewhere else. And I've been around this. Like, he doesn't sleep. Like, you know, it's like, he just doesn't sleep. Now and then he'll sit in meditation posture and apparently kind of like doze for like an hour sometime in the middle of the night. But like, it wouldn't be uncommon to get a call, and I remember this like numerous times. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and you get a call from the attendant. Come over, Rinpoche needs you right now. We got to do this thing. And you're like, okay. Like time doesn't exist in terms of like there's the hours that you do things and then there's the hours that you don't. Like, it's just all hours that you do things. You know, like, and that's the force of bodhicitta, like on a mission. Like on a mission. Like these are my children and they're in this ship that's going down and I have to act now. You know, I mean, it's very cool. It's very cool. Okay, wait, we need a break. You're supposed to remind me. You guys need to remind me because it's way easier to talk than it is to listen. This should be our break. So how long do we want our long break to be? Should we do half hour like yesterday? It's 3, we come back at 40, is that better? So 3:40, we'll come back at 3:40, and then we'll have an hour and 20 minutes. Okay. I better get moving. Take us 40 coffees to do this.
It's been fantastic.
It's gonna take us 40 classes to get through it.
I had such a great night last night.
Oh, good.
Contemplating what you had shared with me yesterday, and reading the conversations that I didn't have a choice but to have them today.
Awesome.
Love life.
Well, I know. It's like that. There's like a pressure cooker, and then some switches, and then it's good though. It feels to me like sometimes the pressure cooker is like the necessary catalyst to make the shift, to give me the clarity to actually, or it's not clarity, it's just like sheer necessity to initiate the conversations that are hard or whatever. You know, it's like it's interesting how it works like that. Yeah.
When I was late yesterday, did I miss a handout?
No, you're wishing you did because I keep saying homework.
What is this class notes then?
Okay, I was thinking about you.
Is that on the internet or something?
Yeah, we didn't link it.
This is also the Phoenix Diamond Mountain website, the ACI.
It says
This is ACI 16.
dharma.org.
If you Google,
This is what we're following?
yeah, I've got the actual readings
I'm
for
not
over
following that,
400 pages, but yeah, so this is different notes, same teachings, different notes.
Different notes from different class that was
Yeah.
already given in the past.
Those are your helpful.
Let me take your email. Give me your email, and then I will send you a link to the website where it's all just download for free, and then you can download. I have a feeling you're internet savvy.
Yeah, depending. False modesty, perhaps, but course, then it will say course.
It'll say course 16. I'll give you all that info and like which one and which page, and that'll be the easiest.
I don't have a pencil.
I have that. Let's just put it in my
I can
phone.
send you my email address from this if you.
Send me that. Do I just give you my phone number?
Is your email address in the class handout?
Oh, I think or no. Yeah. And then in here is all the
The material's a bit different. There's some things where there's a little bit more than what Brandy's saying, and there's some things where there's a little bit less. I'm just kind of OCD. I like things pre-written down so I can take notes on them.
I like class notes too, but I don't have to write because I'm not very good at multitasking.
Yeah.
I need to listen to write.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, the recordings of these will be up, and then even on there, there's probably recordings, partial recordings of this class on there next class.
I'm just saying the one voice is going to be at the ACI.
Yeah, I think that's what the website is recording it, and so that'll, this class will actually be well,
Is it recording us right now?
So, oh, the red light's still on. It might be.
I think before they post it, well, I don't know. Hello.